This is Break Through the Call, the best course of spoken English for the Russians. Это супермощный успех. Самый лучший курс разговорного английского языка для русских. Break Through the Call, the best course of spoken English for the Russians.
А теперь практика глагола to have в простых временах. Учим быстро и также за 3 раза. 1. Задание переведите с русского на английский как можно быстрее, опережая голос проверки. У меня есть огромная собака. I have a huge dog. I have a huge dog. Она очень злая. It is very angry. It is very angry. Однажды у меня также была красивая кошка. I had once a beautiful cat too. I had once a beautiful cat too. У меня снова была бы кошка, если бы не моя злая собака. I would have a cat again, but for my angry dog. I would have a cat again, but for my angry dog. А теперь меняем части предложений. But for my angry dog, I would have a cat again. But for my angry dog, I would have a cat again. У меня есть 2 иностранных друга. Переводите. I have 2 foreign friends. I have 2 foreign friends. Вскоре у меня будет приличная работа в Англии. I will have a nice job in England soon. I will have a nice job in England soon. У Франка есть работа в Америке. Frank has a job in America. Frank has a job in America. У него есть большой кабинет. He has a big office. He has a big office. У него есть современный компьютер. He has a modern computer. He has a modern computer. 2 года тому назад у него здесь, в Москве, были дела. He had some business here in Moscow 2 years ago. He had some business here in Moscow 2 years ago. Скоро у Франка будет еще одна командировка в Москву. Frank will have another business trip to Moscow soon. Frank will have another business trip to Moscow soon. У него сейчас была бы конференция в Москве. He would have a conference in Moscow now. He would have a conference in Moscow now.
Если бы не срочные дела в Великобритании.
But for his urgent business in Great Britain. But for his urgent business in Great Britain. Меняем части предложения. But for his urgent business in Great Britain. But for his urgent business in Great Britain, he would have a conference in Moscow now. He would have a conference in Moscow now. У Франка есть хороший друг, Jane. Frank has a nice friend, Jane. Frank has a nice friend, Jane. У нее тоже есть хорошая работа. She has a good job too. She has a good job too. Она переводчица. She's an interpreter. She's an interpreter. 2 месяца тому назад у Джейн была работа в Канаде. Jane had some work in Canada 2 months ago. Jane had some work in Canada 2 months ago. Через месяц у нее будет переводческая работа в России. She will have some interpreting job in Russia in a month. She will have some interpreting job in Russia in a month. Сегодня у Джейн была бы конференция. Jane would have a conference today. Jane would have a conference today. Если бы у нее сильно не болела голова. But for her heavy headache. But for her heavy headache. Меняем части предложения. But for her heavy headache. But for her heavy headache. Jane would have a conference today. Jane would have a conference today. Внимание на наш следующий прогресс. 2. У моей собаки есть мягкий коврик. My dog has a soft rug. My dog has a soft rug. У нее однажды был друг. It had a friend once. It had a friend once. Это была еще одна собака. It was another dog. It was another dog. Скоро у моей собаки будет поездка в Америку вместе со мной. Soon my dog will have a trip to America with me. Soon my dog will have a trip to America with me. Прямо сейчас у собаки была бы прогулка в парке. The dog would have a walk in the park right now. The dog would have a walk in the park right now. Если бы не сильный дождь. But for the heavy rain. But for the heavy rain. Меняем части предложения. But for the heavy rain. But for the heavy rain. The dog would have a walk in the park right now. The dog would have a walk in the park right now. У меня есть два иностранных друга, Франк и Джейн. I have two foreign friends, Frank and Jane. I have two foreign friends, Frank and Jane. У нас много общего. We have much in common. We have much in common. Однажды у нас были дела в Австралии. Once we had some business in Australia. Once we had some business in Australia. Мы были на международной торговой конференции. We were at an international sales conference. We were at an international sales conference. Скоро у моих друзей будет конференция в России. My friends will have a conference in Russia soon. My friends will have a conference in Russia soon. В этом месяце у нас у всех была бы еще одна конференция в Канаде. We all would have another conference in Canada this month. We all would have another conference in Canada this month. Если бы не непредвиденные обстоятельства. But for some unforeseen circumstances. But for some unforeseen circumstances. Меняем части предложения. But for some unforeseen circumstances. But for some unforeseen circumstances. We all would have another conference in Canada this month. We all would have another conference in Canada this month. У вас новый учитель английского языка, мистер Кларк. You have a new teacher of English, Mr. Clark. You have a new teacher of English, Mr. Clark. Сегодня у вас был очень интересный урок. You had a very interesting lesson today. You had a very interesting lesson today. Завтра у вас тоже будет классный урок. You will have a great lesson tomorrow too. You will have a great lesson tomorrow too. И, наконец, последний этап. 3. У вас будет увлекательная работа в Уганде. You will have some exciting job in Uganda. You will have some exciting job in Uganda. Сегодня у нас был бы урок английского языка. We would have a lesson of English today. We would have a lesson of English today. Если бы не плохая погода. But for the bad weather. But for the bad weather. Меняем части предложения. But for the bad weather. But for the bad weather. We would have a lesson of English today. We would have a lesson of English today. Я учитель. У меня много способных учеников. I'm a teacher. I have many bright pupils. I'm a teacher. I have many bright pupils. Почти у всех моих учеников отличная успеваемость по английскому языку. Almost all my pupils have excellent progress in English. Almost all my pupils have excellent progress in English. На прошлой неделе у вас была лекция по истории. You had a history lecture last week. You had a history lecture last week. Я надеюсь, что завтра у вас тоже будет еще одна интересная лекция. I hope that you will have another interesting lecture tomorrow too. Опускаем слово that. I hope you will have another interesting lecture tomorrow too. У вас сейчас были бы каникулы. You would have your holidays now. You would have your holidays now. Если бы не важные занятия. But for some important classes. But for some important classes. И снова меняем части предложения. But for some important classes. But for some important classes. You would have your holidays now. You would have your holidays now. У них есть друзья за границей. They have friends abroad. They have friends abroad. Иногда у них есть дела в России. Sometimes they have some business in Russia. Sometimes they have some business in Russia. 2 года тому назад у них была командировка в Россию. They had a business trip to Russia 2 years ago. They had a business trip to Russia 2 years ago. Меняем ago на синоним. They had a business trip to Russia 2 years back. They had a business trip to Russia 2 years back. Вскоре у них будет другая командировка. They will have another trip soon. They will have another trip soon. У Франка и Джейн на этой неделе была бы конференция в Москве. Frank and Jane would have a conference in Moscow this week. Frank and Jane would have a conference in Moscow this week. Если бы не непредвиденные дела в Англии. But for some unforeseen business in England. But for some unforeseen business in England. Меняем части предложения. But for some unforeseen business in England. But for some unforeseen business in England. Frank and Jane would have a conference in Moscow this week. Frank and Jane would have a conference in Moscow this week.
Теперь продолжайте смотреть наши другие учебные фильмы и учить урок нулевой, который полностью представлен на нашем сайте. И если вы считаете данный курс разговорного английского эффективным, покупайте полный курс с нуля и до совершенства, сразу или по урокам. Всего в курсе 20 уроков, по 40 страниц печатного текста. Первые 7 уроков полностью озвучены, а остальные частично. В первых 12 уроках дается вся грамматика английского языка, а 8 дополнительных уроков закрепляют грамматику и дают много нового в плане разговорного английского языка. Большое спасибо за внимание. Now keep viewing our other teaching movies and go on learning Lesson O that's fully available on our site. In case you find this course of spoken English effective, you may buy the complete version that will teach you English from scratch and up to perfection. You can buy it either wholesale or by lessons. The course includes 20 lessons by 40 printing pages each. The first 7 lessons are fully recorded, the others partly. The first 12 lessons teach you all the English grammar. The other 8 extra lessons brush up on the grammar and give you a lot of other new stuff in terms of spoken English. Thank you very much indeed for your time.